you're not doing anything wrong. When I started coaching over 20 years ago, there's a little exercise we do called a future self exercise. And you tap into this version of your future self. I am. And what I would tell my 27, 28, 29, even younger, but what I would tell that gal. First of all, I don't know that could I change anything? I might say everything difficult that happens to you really is part of your becoming your favorite version of you. And it's not easy. At the same time that both of those things can exist. The disappointments, the divorces, the letdowns, the losses, the terrible pain that you feel is human and valid. And I would probably pause there more often in the allowing of the pain for that, instead of constantly trying to squirm out of the pain. And I am somebody who, from the time I was little, like comfort, as much as I don't want to admit it, comfort is my number one unconscious motivator and value. And apparently, creativity and autonomy are in there too. And a lot of times, your creativity and your autonomy are going to bump up against that comfort. And the world will tell you're crazy. The two biggest things I've learned that I wish I might have known earlier would be nervous system awareness and regulation. And the second thing is how the systems in our society are structured so that you don't trust yourself and so that you don't be your authentic self. So that you're just good enough that you still comply. Especially women. So many of us were raised in this goodness parameter. And I've always admired the women that I knew that were able to rebel against that. And many of us contorted ourselves into that performance that we didn't even know we were performing. I genuinely believed the shit I was brainwashed to believe. A few years ago, I came across a bunch of documents as we were downsizing my parents from their house and clearing out 53 years of stuff. I was in my old bedroom and I came across a folder of loose leaf notebook paper, and there were like 13 pages front and back, meticulous handwriting. And I saved 2 or 3 of those pages. They're somewhere in my office. But I was brainwashing myself. You'd be horrified. Like if you heard it, you'd be like, what the actual F? Who would say that to themselves? And I read it and my heart broke for that girl, because I know that I probably sat down on a Friday night and was delighted to write in this journal this way and to program my mind this way, which was all about being subservient and a good wife to a godly man. It was weird. Anyways, I loved the school I went to. My mom asked me one time, why didn't you tell me that you were learning this concept, something that really caused a lot of psychological damage in me? And I was like, how would I know? I was a child. I loved my school. I loved my teachers. I believed the best in people. And I will say that I had a delightful time growing up in much of the world believing the illusions. But there were always parts of me that were yearning for truth. My body yearned for integrity and congruence and interconnectedness. I was an optimist. And now I call myself a realist with hope. The realist in me is able to hold the facts of discomfort about truth and the way things are set up, instead of ignoring it or making excuses. But what happened was those systems, the system of patriarchy, the system of high demand religion, the system of capitalism, the system of be this kind of girl, woman, etc. Those systems, many of us internalize that. And when we don't fit that, up comes shame and you're doing it wrong. And I'm here to tell you, you're not doing anything wrong. I know what the world is telling you. I know. And for many years, I bought into it and played the game. I didn't know it was a game. And one of my clients last week was like, I can't unsee it. It's everywhere now. And she was just really sad about it. It's brave and courageous to deconstruct the things that have an impact on you that cause suffering. Not just from this place of self-awareness, but from this compassionate place of understanding and then disconnecting from the internalization of it, seeing how we took on those beliefs that were pressed upon us. I got into like personal development and mindset pretty young. That kind of stuff was just taught, leadership taught in my schools. And I loved reading self-help personal development books and spiritual books in college and after college. And I can see now that I chose a lot of this path of trying to understand psychology and people and human behavior. I have a master's degree in educational psychology. And I can see how that was all born of trying to make sense of myself and the world that I didn't feel like I fit in. I don't know what would have been different if I had been diagnosed with autism or ADD sooner, and I wasn't. And so it is the quest right now, the last 3 years, of really learning, oh, this is me, this is not me. This is my neurobiology, and this is a part of me. I would tell that girl to buy stock in Apple. I don't know. I don't think that's the question that I actually really want to ask. Because looking backwards and giving that girl advice, how would I have ever become the me that I am today? That I really like and enjoy. And I do believe there's a lot of suffering maybe I wouldn't have had to endure. I don't know. But I think we all have suffering that we're going to endure. And that's this driver that has pushed so many of us. If you behave, if you do X, Y, Z, if you achieve 1, 2, 3, then you will not suffer. And you will suffer. My client today was trying to tell me in reflection, she's, this wouldn't have happened without you. This wouldn't have happened without you. And she said, no, I realize I did the work, but you taught me how. And one of the things I've taught her how to do is be more attuned and connected to herself when she's struggling, to validate it, to comfort it, to be there for it, to see that she won't fall apart. Which is something that's been a part of my own journey, is learning how to feel the discomfort and the struggle in a way that doesn't shame myself for being a human. All this rambling just to say, I see you, you've done nothing wrong. And so much of the struggle has been put up on you from the outside in. Because if we are too self-trusting, and if we are that too much woman, and if we are in our confidence, y'all see, and we've been taught to fear rejection from people who are frankly not qualified to be in our lives. We've been taught to seek the approval and acceptance. And listen, when we're young, that is a survival mechanism. And when we are older, we no longer need those survival mechanisms to that extent. But for those of us who developed those coping mechanisms that are rewarded by society, I see you. When being the good girl no longer feels good. When you have chosen pleasing others so much that you unravel yourself, I get it. And there are ways that you can become the woman who is liberated. This does not happen overnight. I wish it did. I wish it were a cognitive change. A cognitive belief change does not change the embodiment. And I think that was one of the things that was so frustrating, because my early personal development joys were change your thinking, change your life. But changing my thinking didn't change what was unconsciously bound to every cell in my body through the threat of unbelonging. And so when we learn how to belong to ourselves, how to recover our true selves, how to be with the extreme discomfort in taking the tiniest steps forward in that, I woke up this morning knowing, hopefully, I have another good 20 years or so, if not more. 20 to 30 years to keep growing and learning. Not because I'm not enough right now. I am. If I never grew or learned or was self-aware another day in my life, it's more than enough. But the joy of discovering more of who I really am and how I want to create and be in my own life and in the world and in relation with others, I can see now the systems of oppression. I can see now the systems of control. I can see the way the only person who will have my interest, and this is not from a cynical place, but why would they? I have my own interest. And then when anybody else joins forces, and that's a bonus. But I will never leave me again. And I spent the first more than half of my life abandoning myself over and over again for the pleasure of others. It's the bravest journey. That's all.